Welcome back to this week's episode of CineClub podcast. I'm Dion, your anime expert.
I'm Rhys. I'm also here.
I'm Gabriel. I'm filling in this episode.
I'm Jake. Not so much anime expert, but anime enthusiast, so close enough.
You're an anime expert to me.
Oh, thanks, Dion.
Right, it's been a good past few weeks of CineClub. We have watched a lot of films, all hosted by different members of staff and also members. We've had some great ones, and we've had some good ones, but today we'll be looking at two of these. One focused on the amazing Snowpiercer, and a film which was done for a charity event done by Ghibli, Grave of the Fireflies, both fitting this week's theme of international cinema. So, to start this off, I want to talk about international cinema itself. What is everyone's favourite, foreign or international movie?
I think one of my favourites has got to be City of God. It's a Brazilian film about these, I wouldn't say gangsters as such, but orphans who find themselves in a life of crime through being in the lower slums of Brazil. It's got a really well told story. It kind of does a looping narrative, starts in medias res. It's really interesting and it's very insightful into the culture as well. But obviously Korean films, Parasite is you can't ignore it really in its cultural impact.
It's everywhere.
So that's also up there.
The left field pick, City of God, no?
Mm-hmm.
I've been meaning to watch that. It looks really good.
So good.
And Parasite's a great one. Akira's the one I always go to. I mean, it's the quintessential Japanese film. I'm a huge kaiju buff, so any Japanese Godzilla films, things like that, Mothra. La Haine's really good as well, French film. That's a bit different. So, yeah. Bit of all sorts, but
Personally, I really enjoy the Studio Ghibli film Nosuke of the Valley of the Wind.
ooh, that's a good one. Yeah,
Great animation, lovely visuals.
yeah. It's not many people talk about that one actually. That's one of my favorites too.
It's
Yeah,
his first Ghibli film, isn't it?
it's the sort of first, early one.
Well, funny enough, mine is a Miyazaki movie,
Ooh, there you go.
which I know Jake will guess. But
There we go. Yeah.
it's Caso Cagliostro. It's also my favorite film of all time, but it was Miyazaki's first movie, and I'm surprised it's getting a lot of love recently. A re-release is planned next year for the UK and stuff, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's flown under the radar for quite a while, but that was a previous CineClub pick. But yeah, good stuff.
So, with that discussion about international cinema, it is a good time for me to hand it over to Gabriel here to talk about Snowpiercer.
Right, yes. We recently played Snowpiercer in the cinema. It was my choice.
Indeed.
Probably my favourite Korean film. It's not just Korean, it's an international effort. Really embodies an international film.
Yeah, totally.
It's absolutely ace. Great actors. Amazing comedy, despite what it may seem like.
It's very dark humoured, very mean-spirited.
I think that's what's quite interesting about it, because it's got the sensibilities, dark humour, and quite a lot of things you see in a Korean film, but then it has that sort of big budget action fight scenes, Chris Evans, all these Hollywood stars. So it
reminds me of Raid and stuff, where it's done by someone who isn't culture and stuff. They still have somewhat of a budget, and it's because Bong Joon-ho is not English fully. It's still a Hollywood film, which has that very much Korean kind of style to it.
Yeah, for a film that was probably made as a way to fund his next sort of thought-provoking Korean film, it's very, very good for that sort of standard. So
Yes,
So Snowpiercer, it's clearly a very impactful film. It's got a lot of good points to it, some commentary on culture, some just general cool sci-fi concepts. So what was everyone's favourite scene? Personally, I really like the intro. I think it was just a very impactful intro, just a few lines of text saying what the situation is. Everyone's stuck on this train. It's the end of the world. Have fun. I like that bit.
Yeah, I like that. I think I like the various ways they do shootouts. I feel there's a lot of bits, particularly the bit where he's trying to shoot across the train as the train's turning a corner, and it's there's just something really cool about that, where they're having a standoff, but they're on completely opposite ends, miles away. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense, because I don't know how a bullet could fly perfectly through, from one side of the train to the other, through the violent snowstorm that's going on outside. And I there's when they're in the sort of sauna bit, and they're hiding, and you can tell one of them's hidden in in the rooms, and the sort of that guy, the sort of grey-haired bodyguards, like working his way through and trying to find them. It's just there's just some really, I like the way they play with that idea that it's like an entire civilization on a train, and there's like all these every sort of different room has like something different to offer, and they kind of try to make a good action set piece out of like these unconventional day-to-day things that, you know, just, but it's all on a train, you know. So
that's like also my second favorite part of the film, where it's like how creative each like train is, like each car and stuff is, because it's not like a generic car. It starts off kind of dull, but then it starts to become this colorful like weirdness of like rich people, and very much
is it like
it's a commentary. And like I will say that the best part of the film is like when they go to school and everything, and it sets up for where you're going, because after that you have the sushi bar. It was before that, but like it does really set up, because like it does give off this very interesting world building too, where society is now like stuck in this ice age, but the only way they're living is for a train, and it's just fairly well done. And with how everything's like set up throughout the whole movie, where it's like, oh, this whole thing's kind of like a thing to keep people living, keep the rich living while the poor has to work and stuff. It's fairly, well, not a new idea. It's fairly thought-provoking how they do it.
Totally, yeah.
My favourite scene has to be the one very close to the end, where we finally get to meet Wilford after the whole film keeps building up this massive image of him being the creator of the Eternal Engine.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the way that he seemed so weird.
He's like really eccentric, sort of, and just like a weirdo, even though they worship him like a god, really.
He just felt so normal and not at the same time, just off-putting, living at the front of the train, completely alone.
Yeah.
And there was something that I don't think a lot of people noticed with the visuals. His eyes, when he looked down the train, he had that ring of light that you could see from the, you know, the lights in the engine room. That they were meant to sort of show his elevated status, his separation, because of his wealth, his money, his
power that he has over everyone. Yeah, exactly.
And it also reflected in Curtis, the main character, when he was offered that same position. So
I really like that as well. I mean, spoiler alert, but I'm presuming if you're listening to this, you will have seen the film. The fact that it's Ed Harris as well. I mean, it just reminds us of the Truman Show. Like, it's basically like almost the same, where you like suddenly realize that the guy who's been controlling your life this whole time, and then it's like, oh, look at that, it's Ed Harris. It's just like a little sort of surprise guest at the end, but like
it's like a lot of like films do that too, where it's like, oh, this character is under this mask, and it's like, oh, it's John Hurt or Ed Harris,
because I wasn't sure who, like, whether this Mr. Wilford was going to even be like an actual person towards the end. The way they sort of talk about him, I thought it was
going to be like a metaphor.
Yeah, I thought it's like going to be a metaphor, or the twist's going to be that he's like been dead for years and they've just been like keeping him in a room or something. But like,
just
I don't know.
Body.
I just wasn't expecting it to be quite so down to earth when it actually got to the end. It was really cool. So yeah, no, I like that.
Right, with that, let us move to our second film of the podcast, Grave of the Fireflies. Now, as Dion said, this movie was for the charity event, which was hosted by us at CineClub.
With Grave of the Fireflies being a dark film, what did you guys all think of it?
Well, it was a dark... Honestly, being serious though, like, it's probably... I wouldn't call it the darkest Ghibli film, because I will always say The Wind Rises is one of the most devastating films of all time.
That one made us cry constantly, whereas this one didn't. But
this one made me like emotional, but I wouldn't say it wasn't. Like, I know a lot of people compare it, like, this is very devastating, but like there's something very thought-provoking, emotional, but like very upbeat, where it feels like a lot of people like miscommunicate the ending of, oh, it's like, I remember them saying it's like, well, spoilers, but they say that like this is them trying again and stuff, like it's gonna happen again, but like the scene of them watching the society rebuild itself, because I believe Japan, like, it's very much not a lot of like people who like are poor or anything, like not a lot of people there, because the community's helping them, and it's very much, I feel like that's what it is, but I don't know how 80s Japan was like. But then throughout the whole film, there's this very much dark but also beautiful, like, I wouldn't call it fish out of water, but these kids who just came out all like gone through crap and everything because their mums died.
Yeah.
But they're trying to like enjoy that time. They have that dream of staying in this cave, this childhood thing, and it's just such a very interesting idea. And I think it works really well for most of it. I think the film's an absolute like masterpiece. And like, I think there's something about Japanese media where they aren't scared to tell kids that it's not going to be okay at times. It's not.
That's fair, because it is like compared to like something like My Neighbor Totoro, which is like also sort of about kids struggling with a situation. It's like not exactly. It's very different, but yeah, no, I totally see what you mean. I think one interesting, when you were saying you're not sure about Japan in the 80s, you gotta remember this was 1986, so Cold War was quite a big thing still. So I mean, the idea that anyone could get nuked into oblivion at any moment was still quite a fear, I think, of all of them.
80s animation was full of this way, because where the wind blows.
Is that the English film about
the British
comic?
One, which had that, because it was very much, I think the Cold War was so massive, and even live action films like what was it called? It's the one where it's like in thing, but they get nuked and everything. It's England too, but like
Threads,
there we go. Yeah,
I was gonna say
that's both like, even like outside of animation, it's such a big thing. But I'm getting ahead of myself there, because honestly, still the film is just such a beautiful masterclass of how to tell a very thought-provoking, dark story.
Yeah, because
it still have a hopeful note at the end.
It's very intimate, isn't it? It focuses on the experiences of these two kids rather than like the whole country. It's kind of there like the microcosm for everything that people were going through at that time. And I think it's like an interesting character study, both of the fact that they're so young and you watch it and you sort of forget how young they are because of the way they behave, but it's like, it's just, that was the situation they were forced into, and that's how they attempt to survive. And you know, it's like, it's tough.
It's very interesting because Ghibli loves to like set their films at war times a lot, like even Boy and the Heron did.
Howl's Moving Castle. That's a great bit of war, I think. That sounds horrible, but
that's a great bit of war.
A little bit of murder, but like the big hand-waved war, and that's so cool.
I think Miyazaki's son made was it the Poppies one, where it's like
From Up on Poppy Hill.
They love their World War films. Like, I think there's a lot to tell, because Great Fireflies feel like the iceberg of what you can tell with a war film at times.
Yeah, I think that's the most on the nose in the way that it's actually set at war, and the fact that it's a Takahata film rather than Miyazaki, because Miyazaki's quite good at like dancing around the subject with like these fun characters and the sort of cute things, and
we're gonna murder them.
Takahata's a bit more rip the band-aid off and like put your head in the icy water and make you watch. It's like the sheer horror of it.
It's like Where the Wind Blows, where it's like,
you just see this like old couple.
But like the one they made where it's like, this is such a happy film about a painter, and then the ending happens, you're just going,
it's grim.
What I really like about this film as well is that it doesn't focus solely on the atomic bomb. Because other films like Barefoot Gen, Godzilla, any other like post-war Japanese film, it's instantly on the bomb is the biggest tragedy that's ever happened to our country, whereas this is more like on the general, just the general wearing down of the Japanese people by the fire bombs.
Losing the war, losing the families, and they're still believing that they're gonna win and it's gonna be okay, and they're like, no, we're lost. He's like, what? And they're like, it's so nonchalant, like they're just casual about it, like, your dad's dead.
All that dogma just like instantly disappears.
Exactly.
Like, I just find that way more interesting, because again, everything focuses on the atomic bomb, but that's not even mentioned, really.
No, not really. Like, you get the impression that's on its way, but it's like, but
I don't think they even mention Hiroshima, stuff like that, don't they? Is it like thing?
Yes, I think at the train station
they mention
and even then it's just in passing. The real tragedy is how many lives were lost by like, you know, again, the general wearing down of the people.
It's like, they get ill. I don't know how they get ill, but I remember they get ill, and I think they say, if the doctors were available, like, I think there were medications, and the 550 could have helped that, but it's like such a devastating thing though, because how the film kind of just goes with that, it's just kind of like, okay, this is how it ends.
Because that's it. It's not like they survive all of the bombs and the bullets and the fire and all of that. It's like malnutrition that kills the sister. You know, it's things like that it's like, it is just... You sort of don't really consider that in the statistics. It's like very easy to look at war statistics and forget that it's like, I mean, I'm saying that like I look at war statistics in my spare time, but like, you know what I mean? It's kind of that idea of like, it goes so deep. Like, it's not just as simple as like, if people are getting shot and blown up, that's it. It's like,
exactly.
It's also the aftermath of that. And this film like absolutely nails the sort of representation of what that would look like on a smaller scale.
Like, it could have very easily been a film about the kid's dad and how he's a super cool Navy man and how he tragically loses his life fighting for war. But no, it's about like the long-term like human consequences. Like, what are these kids doing? They did nothing wrong.
No,
like they just living their lives like everyone else is. The civilian deaths.
Scene which stays with me, where like they're in the cave and you have the bullies or whatever you call them, just kicking them, and it's just so sad because like it's like, oh look, ghosts, and it's just like, oh. And it's just such a dark, like...
That film destroyed me.
It is. It's
so
brutal.
sad.
Right.
It kind of like... I don't know, I feel like it softens the blow sometimes because it starts at the end. The first line is, on this day I died. Yeah. So you know, oh, these kids are going to die. There's no hope for them. But like through watching them, you learn to love them. Yeah. And that you really, really hope someone's got through it alive.
Well, that's that sort of Romeo and Juliet effect where it's like reading the last page of the book first, like, and it's like, oh, well, spoiler alert, but then it makes it more impactful because you know they're going to die, but then you're like...
How are they going to die?
Yeah, not so much, not so much that. It's more like a case of like, God, like, I don't want them to die now.
Yeah.
It's that threat.
Yeah, exactly, because, you know... Because
I thought they were going to, and that sounds awful. I thought they were going to die earlier than they did.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't know what it was going to be about because, well, I did, but originally I thought it was going to be like, oh, it's like ghosts going to like this other world. But I heard from other people, but no, it was fairly.
It's
different.
just really grounded for Studio Ghibli style, which I think is what takes you back because it's so brutal and yet it's got like the same art styles. It's got all the same faces. So it's like sort of when they do the whole thing with like finding the mom and you know it's like this like
oh my god
bandaged up to a crisp corpse and it's like oh my god, but then it's also like still in that same like art style. It's like these are the same guys who drew like Totoro a couple of years later, it's drawing like this brutal like charred corpse. It's like oh, it's just horrible.
It reminds me of Berserk.
Yeah,
Berserk is a whole other kettle of fish. But like, I see what I mean. Just the absolute brutality in the art style sometimes. Like that really goes for it.
I think that's the thing with anime because it can go so far in both directions. It can be, there's like sort of a spectrum of it where it can go from like child-friendly potential metaphor about war, and then maybe in the middle you got something like Akira, which is like very much about not meddling in war, but it's not quite as upfront about it. Kind of presents it in that sci-fi like lens, and then you've got something like this, which is just like a total period piece, really,
which literally just tells you everything's wrong. The whole world is going to collapse. Let's not do this again, please.
Not even a giant monster there.
Yeah, left no room for discussion. Just war mad.
Exactly. It's like, which is fair enough because when you'd suffered as much as Japan had at that time, why would you think anything else?
Yeah, exactly. They're still on about it.
They're still on about it. Yeah, exactly. Bless them. They're still trying with more modern Godzilla films and Miyazaki films still coming out. So, yeah. No, for sure. It was a really, really good one. I'm glad I've seen it now.
I find like there's an odd difference as well. Like as you mentioned, like the death of the mom, she's like really just absolutely, she's dead 100%. Like you see that on screen. She's like a charred corpse. Like she's like a kebab, right?
Yeah, because I thought it was going to be like off screen, but then it's like the kid literally approaches and it's like, oh my god,
you can see her skin peeling off.
It's grotesque. You know, it was like
I watched this like way before I watched it in CineClub. So seeing that scene, it was just very much like going, oh, okay,
that's war.
Still, like the second time I saw it, I was like going, oh, okay, this isn't like a family film. This is very much a film which is still rated a 12, by the way.
Really?
Yeah.
Good God.
It's insane how much you can get away with a 12 in the 80s.
That's true, actually.
Watership Down is mentioned. Not the 80s, I don't think, but that's a similar situation.
What do you mean, Watership Down?
Whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely a good
Dion will hide you from the trauma.
Watership Down's like that's a U, isn't it?
It's a U. No, it's been changed to a PG recently.
PG now. Oh, God. But it was a U for years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's insane.
I think it's interesting, all this, like, as I said, gore that they're having, like these 12 movies, the Watership Down kids movie, this is a 12.
How do they get away with that?
the little kid's death as well. It's not a violent death like the mother's is. Like, it would be very easy to make you like an anti-war person by having this like 2-year-old burn in a fire.
Yeah,
But no,
worse.
it's so
it
much
is
worse,
way
yeah.
worse.
Because you like, and you watch the gradual like sort of decay as
Yeah.
the film goes on as well,
It's
and there's like
she says like, "Oh, I'm going now," and it's just like, "Oh, okay." And the
it's
writing
just
goes,
brutal, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's like
It's the decay.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's the way it just builds up. It's just so sad.
Yeah,
It's so
it's the way it is,
unnecessarily
isn't it? Yeah.
sad.
It's to show your family, to show it's a good Christmas film.
yeah,
It's a
exactly.
Christmas film.
And what's when he goes and asks the guy for wood, and the guy's like smiley face, like this is the key to a good criminal, like information. It's like, but because it was just so casual at that point,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that is
yeah.
just
Exactly.
that's just what it would have been like, and it's like it's awful.
If you have like a thing on anime films where it's like a PG or 12 anime films traumatizing you since 19.
Well, that's it. I
Since
mean,
whenever.
whenever,
since-
yeah.
well, that was how it all broke out, wasn't it? Really, it was the controversial, violent 15 rated ones on VHS. That was what made it popular over
Like
here.
Violent Jack and everything.
Yeah, well, like I think it
Yeah.
was like Legend of the Overfiend and stuff like that. That's one that gets mentioned quite a lot, and I think that was what gave it its initial status. But then the fact that these films are now getting popular as well,
It does worry me that we're going to go back to the time of parents going, "Oh yeah, anime is bad."
It's for kids.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but parents don't care what their kids are watching nowadays. Just give them a
they love
tablet,
their
give them
GTs.
YouTube,
Internet's
and
too
let
easy
them
to
do whatever.
access.
Give them a phone. It's like, I think we're probably past that point.
Yeah, everyone's just giving up. You either don't give your kids an iPod, or you give them like 5
Or
iPads.
you give them any. Yeah,
You beam Coco Melon directly into their head.
yeah.
They can watch like
Imagine accidentally queuing Grave of the Fireflies for your kids.
Oh, it's on Netflix, so it's like all it takes is just let
a
it.
kid could just like find it as well.
Oh, look at that.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's animated. It's a cartoon.
children.
The worst part is my
it's
niece
like,
and nephew.
no.
My niece and nephew getting Ghibli films now. And I'm just
Oh, no.
going, "Oh,
Steer them to Totoro, not
Yeah,
to
give them
Grave of the
kid-friendly.
Fireflies.
what do you
Yeah.
mean? What do you mean? Grave of the Fireflies is such a great film for kids."
Well, I think I enjoyed it more as well because it's one of the last Studio Ghibli films I hadn't seen. So because I have like
Yes.
I had such the established notion in my mind of like, oh yeah, that's the style, that's the way they do it, and I just knew that this one was different, but yeah, it's still, I still couldn't get wrap my head around the fact that it looked exactly the same, and yet it was like
Yeah.
such different subject matter. But
The feel-good Christmas film this year.
hey, Snowpiercer, lots of snow.
Hey.
Basically, just the Polar Express. It's like close enough.
Right.
Permanent Express.
The Permanent Express instead of Santa giving you a present.
Evans
It's
doing the hot
Ed Harris
chocolate
giving you a
dance.
tea.
I would love that. Just Chris Evans doing the dance.
It's John Hurt.
Every character's Tom Hanks.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like how like
Every character in Snowpiercer, but that Tom Hanks.
what's his name in like Snowpiercer? He plays like he's in the FNAF film. I forgot his name. Josh Hutcherson.
What a
Josh
throwaway
Hutcherson.
that is.
No.
Oh, he's in
Yeah, he played the
Polar
kid,
Express.
yeah.
Yeah, I thought you meant Josh Hutcherson was in
right,
Snowpiercer. Yeah, he's the main.
yeah.
He's the main kid.
Yeah, yeah.
I forgot about that.
Right, is that every question we've had?
I think we've drained this topic dry, yeah.
I think that's
Right.
about right.
I think this seems like the best time to conclude the podcast now. Aww.
Podcast
everyone
episode,
home.
not the podcast in general. We're not concluding the whole podcast.
Oh, next, the CineClub, the CineClub Pando's going up next. So.
Oh no!
Right, don't forget, if you want to get in touch with us, email us at cineclub.podcast@sparksunderland.com because Jake wants to know what you think.
Yeah, man, give us the gossip. We've
Specifically,
been
Jake.
asking for weeks.
And as always, this episode was recorded and produced by us, the Sunderland University students, and edited by Emily Main.
And a special thanks to Steve Cannon, Barbara Sadler, and Richard Berry. Reminder that our amazing hosts have been consisted of me, Gabriel.
Rhys.
Jake.
And me, anime expert Dion. This has been a CineClub production for Spark Radio. Thanks for listening.